Hello everyone and welcome back to another round of Tuesday Night Legacy. Tonight we are featuring the second video off of our first community picks vote. This video tied with our other one. We are featuring Jeskai Days Undoing versus 4-color Ligma Control Pile. After going back and watching the video, I realized that this is not a Jeskai list at all. It is in fact a 4-color list. We have featuring Comet Stellar Pup here. But other cards that you probably would recognize are things like Uro, Titans of Nature's Wrath, and Life from the Loam, Prismatic Ending, Mince and Boo, and just a bunch of different Super Friends. So Jace, the Mind Sculptor, Narset, and Teferi. This particular list I did borrow from the internet, as I wasn't quite able to get the correct list off of the player in time. But the general concept of this deck is play Narset or a Hull Breacher, and then play Days Undoing, so that you are reloading your hand completely and then completely denying the other player their hand, and either getting 7 treasure tokens in a best case scenario, or just allowing them to draw 1 card while you have a full hand and passing to their turn. Even though you have to end your turn, it's still pretty good to have a full hand and they have 1 card in hand. Over time, you're basically just controlling them out of the game with either very good removal or things like Force of Will, of course. And then you just win with the inevitability of Uro or Hull Breacher attacking. And in an extremely painful game, you can win through the -12 of Jace the Mind Sculptor. On the other side of the board, we have Bryson playing his Ligma Control Pile. What is Ligma, you ask? It is what we call at the store the Witherbloom Apprentice Chain of Smog combo. So playing the Witherbloom Apprentice has Magecraft, which says, whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery, you gain 1 life and they lose 1 life. And Chain of Smog actually allows you to target a player and have them discard 2 cards, and then another copy of that spell goes on the stack, and you can choose new targets for that spell. So typically this card wanted to go back and forth, so that both players would lose all the cards in their hands, and then everybody would be sad. What we're doing here instead is Bryson is targeting himself again and again and again. More of those copies go on the stack, and Witherbloom Apprentice is triggering for each of those copies. So if the opponent doesn't have any way to interact with this spell on the stack or get rid of Witherbloom Apprentice, they just lose the game after 20 copies of Chain of Smog have resolved. The rest of the deck plays basically like a 4-color control pile. This also has some Uros. It has Leovold. This particular one does run 3 Green Sun Zenith. And of course it does have the Force of Wills. The spicy include that Bryson has in here is the one of Pernicious Deed, taking care of a lot of those pesky permanents that are on board besides Planeswalkers. So let's see how these two 4-color control piles interact. Bryson starting the game with a Tropical Islands into a Ponder. You can always recognize Bryson's deck by those very beautiful dual lands that he has. Sometimes altered, sometimes just maybe 4 in black border. We see a Green Sun Zenith for 1, pulling out the one of Birds of Paradise. And Daniel just starting with a tapped Mystic Sanctuary into a Misty Rainforest. Not doing much. The Days Undoing list is also an 80-card pile with the Yorion, named as the companion up in the corner there. We see a Brainstorm in response to this expressive iteration. Wondering if Daniel's going to go for the... Okay, so there's a Force of Negation saying, no, I don't want you to gain any advantage at all. Get that out of there. So we do see a Thoughtseize coming down from Bryson. We see Comet, and Daniel has his own expressive iteration. There's a Narset, Uro, and an Abundant Growth. Getting rid of Narset. Narset, pretty good against the control pile, since Brainstorm does basically shut you down. Why don't you draw 1 of those cards and then put 2 cards back from your hand? Not a good spell. See Daniel going and getting just a basic forest. We got the Abundant Growth. Might as well get the basics so you can't get Wastelanded out. Daniel probably not realizing Bryson's mana base is so greedy there's no possible way that he could be running Wasteland, but that's fine. So we see that Abundant Growth come right down, draw a card. I think that's a Steam Vents. Not 100% certain. A Mince and Boo A very powerful Planeswalker trigger on the stack. We see Boo come into play. So 1/1. Gonna plus up here. Make Boo this already hasty trample 1/1, turn it into a 4/4, crashing in. This card can take over the game by itself. Daniel also only has 3 lands in play here. Decides to go Mountain. And we're going to cast Uro. He put aside that land, I guess trying to make sure that things aren't too confusing. Uro getting the breeding pool into play, gaining some life. 1 mana up here for Daniel. Bryson deciding that he's going to fling Boo. Since it is a hamster, he is going to get to draw 4 cards off of that, dealing 4 damage to Daniel. So getting 8 damage off of that one little creature and getting to draw 4 cards, not a bad deal. Life from the Loam. Pulling back a couple lands out of the grave. All right, let's see here. Back to Daniel. He's going to cast that Expressive Iteration. Looking at a couple cards here. Bryson probably in a pretty commanding spot, getting to draw quite a few cards. I think that is the Teferi. That doesn't look like Teferi Time Raveler. Oh, yes it is. So this is Teferi Time Raveler. Now Bryson can't interact at instant speed anymore. Counterspells are no longer an equation. Trying to decide, he's going to bounce the Birds of Paradise since he can't bounce Minsk and Boo Timeless Heroes. And passes the turn. Boo comes into play basically every single turn. Beginning of your upkeep. So it's not every turn, thankfully. Bryson says, can I read that weird Planeswalker from the unset Comet Stellar Pup? This thing can get completely out of control. Plussing up, getting that 4/4 hamster again, crashing in at Teferi. So without spending any mana resources at all, kind of taking back over the game here. We see the Witherbloom Apprentice come into play, and a Birds of Paradise backup. So Bryson doesn't seem to have the Chain of Smog here. Although, you never know. He might be holding on to it until he has some sort of counterspell. Although, when you commit to the Chain of Smog combo, counterspells don't really matter since you have to discard your hand anyways. Your opponent just waits until you have no cards and then counters the spell while it's on the stack. Daniel going to his turn here. Taking 1 damage for some reason. Oh, I think he did a fetch. Yeah, that fled to Strand. Looks like he might be going for the play the Uro, exile 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4 mana. Getting to draw a card. And he can play an extra land here if he wants. But maybe he doesn't have it. There's a Force of Will. Is that a Monastery Mentor? We're seeing a Assassin's Trophy. Gonna Force of Will the Assassin's Trophy. Make sure we can hold on to that Uro. Assassin's Trophy being Bryson's go-to removal spell since it destroys any permanent an opponent controls. Can't target your own stuff, but target anything that's problematic, including lands. They do get that basic. Looks like Daniel's pulling up some Oracle text here. Bryson deciding to plus up on Mince. A second Mince. And we're going to plus up again. So I believe we got a 10/10 trample haste hamster coming in here. And there's the Chain of Smog. And Daniel decides to pack it up. Can't do anything. We are on to game 2. So the Chain of Smog doing exactly what it was supposed to. I think even in that scenario, Bryson had enough cards in hand that Daniel would have been dead before he was out of cards in hand. So there was no way that we were going to get that back. We see a Hull Breacher coming in. First spell of the game. Bryson cracking a fetch in response here. The Hull Breacher making it so that you can't draw cards. Your opponent can't draw extra cards except for the first time you would normally in a turn. See a Pyroblast from Bryson. And here's one that's not in the list. We got a Monastery Mentor. And it looks like we're going to see... Yeah, there's going to be an Assassin's Trophy here, a Brainstorm in response. Monastery Mentor making those monks with prowess every time you cast a non-creature spell. Doesn't find the answer for it. Instead, we get the basic. We have one monk with prowess. Monastery Mentor, usually the win condition towards the end of the game. That Witherbloom Apprentice coming back out here. Maybe I think there was a little bit of takesies backsies from Bryson. Decided, hey, instead of casting this Witherbloom, I'm going to kill your Monastery Mentor. So there's the Narset. Narset denying some card draw here from Bryson. Finding a Swords to Plowshares with the -2. So not only is this a good, doing its best impression of an enchantment, but you actually get to find 2 relevant cards out of your deck too, with being able to -2 twice. Swords to Plowshares coming in for the Witherbloom Apprentice, gaining some life. Looks like Bryson has that blue Elemental Blast in his hand. Unfortunately, that can't take care of Narset. Ooh, an Engineered Explosives for 3. So Engineered Explosives will be able to deal eventually. Well, I guess I don't have it in the list here, but because he played it for 3 Sunburst, we'll be able to get rid of anything for -3. Unfortunately, that Prismatic Ending is going to take care of that pretty easily. I think technically the CMC on Engineered Explosives is 0. Bryson goes, here's the hamster, and Daniel says, no thanks, I'd rather use this Surfing Pikachu. Crashing in with the monk and the hamster for, it appears to be 6 damage. Bryson quite sad. There is a Hydroblast and a Pyroblast. Back and forth. There's a blue Elemental Blast. A lot of blasts coming in from the sideboard. Basically, the blue ones destroy red spells and the red ones destroy blue spells. That's all you really got to know. And they're hyper efficient at 1 mana apiece. So these control decks swap out a lot of their either Force of Wills or, you know, things that aren't as effective for the blasts just because they are so efficient. See Expressive Iteration put Wasteland into play, wasting the Underground Sea. And we see Comet Stellar Pup resolving. So this card is a silly amount of randomly generated advantage. It has abilities that do different things depending on what you roll. I think the 4 to 5 is damage straight to your opponent. Number of loyalty counters, deals damage. Creature or player. Depending on the amount of loyalty counters that he has. So that was 5 damage to Bryson off the dome there. And if you roll a 6, you get to roll twice more. So there are a lot of players that just get to continue to roll. Oh, I rolled another 6. And you just are plussing and plussing and plussing. And it gets out of control really fast. I think it's a strange include into the Legacy format and Vintage format. And EDH, I guess. Well, here we are in Game 3. See a Bayou and probably a green... That might be a Misty Rainforest. I'm not entirely certain. But we're kind of just passing it back and forth here. Shocking in a Hallowed Fountain, not really doing anything about it. Bryson gets 2 damage for free. And now we're seeing that Steam Vents, pass it back. We are just putting down a whole lot of lands. Nobody wants to commit to the board. See a Brainstorm. Bryson says, I'll let it resolve. Oh, that's a Blood Moon out of Daniel's hand there. Blood Moon, impossibly effective against Bryson. Oh, it's double Blood Moon. Bryson has to respond to this right now, or else he is making red mana for the rest of the game. Bryson, notorious at our store for not running any basics. Oh, he has an island now. Interesting, but he goes and gets a tropical island, thinking I'll use my counterspell instead. 2 mana. Floating the mana, letting the Blood Moon resolve, and then casting the Assassin's Trophy. Daniel going and getting a basic Snow-Covered Plains. And Bryson going to his turn, trying to decide what's going to be the best course of action here. Sacking that Misty Rainforest, going and getting that basic island. Good move. Oh, it's a very good island too. Believe that's from Nemesis. Might be wrong though. Can't see the set. 3 mana. Maybe this is an Uro? Oh, it's a Plague Engineer. Plague Engineer naming Monk, maybe? But it doesn't really matter because we see the Swords to Plowshares coming down. Getting rid, and a second Blood Moon. And now Bryson goes, well, okay, good thing I got that island. There is the Monastery Mentor. Looks like Bryson is kind of stuck on land to start. Engineered Explosives coming down on 0. Going to be able to deal with the monks, at least. As he was only able to generate 2 Sunburst, which is not going to be enough to get rid of Blood Moon. Pyroblast, countering Teferi instead of destroying Teferi. Still seeing that monk onto the battlefield. We see a Hydroblast taking care of the second Blood Moon. Hydroblast destroying target red permanent. And a Thoughtseize. Ooh, an Expressive, a Hydroblast, and a Prismatic Ending. And of course there's Abundant Growth. Probably wouldn't take that. Taking the Prismatic Ending. So at any time here, Bryson can pop this Engineered Explosives to kill all the monks in play. Although the Monastery Mentor might do a good job of killing him by itself, since it also has prowess. Oops. Casting the Abundant Growth, getting a second monk. Getting to draw a card. Expressive Iteration, another monk. Now these monks can't attack this turn, but each one is getting a prowess trigger, which can make things a little complicated. But really you just have to keep track of the monks that don't have Summoning Sickness at least. So 3 non-creature spells cast this turn, crashing in. Monastery Mentor is a 5/5. We crack the Engineered Explosives to get rid of all monks in play. So Bryson kind of resetting the field. Waiting until Daniel had his big play there. But Daniel kind of refueling his hand with each of those spells that he cast. There's the Assassin's Trophy. Ideally not red, which is great if your opponent only has Hydroblast to counter it. Getting another basic into play here. Jumping in the middle of the video here to let you know that the rest of this video is about another minute and a half. It looks like the rendering of the original video kind of skipped a little bit, and so it's going to happen in quick jumps and big cuts. So apologize for that quality, but we're going to finish it up just to see who gets to win this game. Let's get back to the action. So we have a Hull Breacher coming into play. Bryson has the Pyroblast for it. It goes away. What's going to happen now? I'm not sure. Looks like there's some shuffling. And we see a land come into play. It's out of here. I guess that was a Scalding Tarn getting a Taiga into play. Both players shuffling their hands. A lot of mana being cast, getting Yorion into play, bouncing those two abundant growths, getting to draw 2 cards. Bryson casting a Brainstorm, resolving said Brainstorm. So we got this 4/5 Beater Boy in play here. Passing it back. Bryson at 9. Daniel at 13. So just 3 attacks from the big boy is going to get the game here. We see Uro getting cast, and then probably casting Uro again. Oh, we see Comet coming back into play here. Bryson not doing anything about any of these. So, and there's a 6. So it's a plus up. We get a 2, which I think is some squirrels. Oh my goodness, here's another roll. It's a 5, that's 8 damage, and Bryson is done. Woo, that got a little choppy towards the end there, but we made it. It looks like Daniel was able to take it off of the back of Comet Stellar Pup 2-1. Thanks as always for tuning in to our YouTube channel. We are getting up there with our subscribers. If this is your first time here, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel if you want to see more of this content in the future. Thanks to everyone who voted on the community votes poll. I'm going to try and do more of that kind of stuff in the future since we have so much backlog and it's just not possible to do all of them. So I really like seeing what videos you guys want to see so I can get the content that you want to see up on the channel. Thanks as always to Spellhold Games for allowing us to record in their play space. We would not exist without you. And if you are interested in the decks that were played in this video, the deck lists are always in the description of this video, as well as on our Instagram channel. You can check out visual layouts of both of these decks there. And if you want to catch us live every first and third Tuesday of the month, we have live commentary over on our Twitch channel at twitch.tv Tuesday Night Legacy. And that'll do it for us for this video. As always, I'm Eugene, this is Tuesday Night Legacy, and we'll see you next time.